I am so excited, Joel, because I feel like I keep wanting to like fly to Florida and meet you in person, but I guess this is actually a good chance for us to meet a little bit more because I've been telling people that this like I wasn't fully expecting how intimate this collection series was going to be, the collectors, right?
Mhm.
But I was like, man, we really get into some cool stuff and find out a lot about people's personality. You can see Joel's collection, and I'm looking at it right now, and it's so impressive with the lights and the figures that you have and everything that's going on, Joel. I'm just so excited.
The one thing I started collecting probably 10, 11, 12, like around the Garbage Pail Kids era, was Mad Magazine and Cracked. Those were so I'm not a comic book guy. Like, I appreciate comic books. I did read like as a kid, Fantastic Four and Spider-Man were my jam, but beyond those, I wasn't massively into comic books. Even with those, I would just read them, sort of randomly and leisurely. It was not like I had to collect every issue kind of thing. But Mad Magazine, and Cracked, I loved and was obsessed with. So I still have quite a few of my childhood Mad magazines and Cracks. Like those I actually have like a fairly large collection of to this day. And same thing. And then as I got a little bit older into my, middle school, high school age, Fangoria was my particular addiction of choice when it came to collecting. And a little bit with Gore Zone, and I do still have a lot of my, especially from high school. I have a lot of my original Fangorias. Although there was a lot of issues that over time things happened and whatnot. So I ended up having to add them back in periodically. And so I know we're doing this as video and audio, but hold on. Okay, because I actually literally have a magazine display rack in here, so I had to stretch. But this is the actual first Fangoria issue. Now, this particular one is not the one, but it is the issue that was like my very first one. I remember getting it in 7th grade. And for those that are listening at home, it is issue number, I think it's 70 something.
It says 74 on the back, Joel.
Oh, no. Oh, it's 79. It's 79.
Oh, 79.
I was
79.
gonna. I didn't even see that. I forgot that was there. Yeah, I must have done that for myself in the past. Like, oh, write that down, dummy. I was gonna say 78 was my guess, but yeah. So it's Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers, which was shot in your neck of the woods, I do believe, the Salt Lake City area.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, because when I was there in 2017 for the Movie Podcast Network meetup, I made my wife and children follow me around to the locations for Halloween 4 while I played the Halloween theme on my phone. And we walked the neighborhoods, and it was October, and it was perfection. So, and by the way, I love how into Halloween, for whatever reason, people of Salt Lake City are. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it was insane. Like, like, look, obviously, I'm not from Utah. I don't have a background. We don't have to go into religious things, but I don't have a background. So I kind of had assumptions, right? But I go there, I'm like, oh man, these are my people. Like, this is amazing. Like, it felt like I was in a Halloween movie. That is how Halloween it was. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I am so into Halloween, and most of my like neighbors and stuff are really big into Halloween. I mean, there's always like the house, and you mean like just the holiday in general, right, Joel?
Yeah, like the decorations.
Yeah,
And
like
obviously, I mean, there was a few houses where things were more like what I would say, like on
tone.
the what I mean, like on the, like the like a little bit maybe on more the intense. I'll say intense side.
Yeah,
Most of
yeah,
it was like there was an innocence to it, but like that made it even better because it felt like
yeah,
Halloween circa like 1973.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like a lot of skeletons, like cardboard skeletons on people's doors and jack-o'-lanterns, and it's like it felt perfect. It was
Yeah, that's
awesome.
awesome.
Loved it. I loved it. So anyway, so I needless to say ended up on Fangoria on eBay, found this particular issue of Fangoria. But I remember in 7th grade being in math class trying to read this and getting in trouble because I when I found it I was like, oh, what have I found? I was like 12, 13, whatever. And then from then on I do still have quite a few issues from that time frame. And then also movie posters. Like, I had hundreds of double-sided theatrical posters, but over
So
time, go
they
ahead.
were
Sorry.
double-sided. So
Yes,
when you flip them, they would be a different version
it's
of
the
the
exact
poster?
same version, but it's like the mirror image, so everything's backwards. And I think they started doing that in the 90s, some point in the 90s. And I think the logic was it had something to do with a lot of theaters were using like basically backlit boxes. And when there
Oh,
was like
okay.
old school
Yeah.
posters, like I have a couple of original old school posters, like you can't see it from here, and I'll get it to it in a minute. But one of my one of the like sort of like crown jewels of my collection is an old school poster, and it's got a white back. There's no double sided because it's from the 70s. So this is again, I think something that started more in the 90s, like maybe
Okay,
the
that's
early
so cool.
yeah, and I was working in a movie theater from like 96 to like sometime in I feel like I left late 97, early 98. It was about a 2-year window.
Yeah.
So I have like quite a few posters from that time period, and I had a lot. Now, video store posters, to my knowledge, that I could think off the top of my head, never did. They were always one-sided. But the reason why they would do the double-sided is I think when you put it against that lit back in especially if they're exposed to the outside, I think it had something to do with how they would pop better. Like I think that was the
Yeah.
logic,
Yeah.
but they still make them that way. Like I have a you can't see it from here, but the Thanksgiving, I got two of the for the new Eli Roth movie, and they're both double-sided because they're original theatrical posters from today. Also, the
Wow.
size changes. So like old school posters are usually 27 by 41 as if they're US. International ones fluctuate. Sometimes they're a little smaller. Sometimes they could, like the French ones can be a lot bigger. But the modern ones, by and large, are like usually like 27 by 40. It seems like is where they usually fall. Like the Thanksgiving, I think, are 27 by 40. If you can see in the background that we've got here, I don't know, can you see it from where you're
Yeah,
at?
I
Okay,
can.
so currently the only one of those four I have hanging up is the Fright Night 2, which is that with the white one, which I love because
Mhm.
it's so minimalist and it's so
Yeah.
80s, you know.
Yeah.
But again, that one I think I actually got from that is an original from when I was younger, like in high school age. That came out what 88. So I guess I was about like 13 to 14, somewhere in there. And it was at a video store. And our video store used to just give away posters. Like they had a box and you could go in and just like, take what you want. I was like, okay. And again, a lot of those, that one, Howling Six, The Freaks. And there's like, I think I have a couple of the Blood of Heroes with Rutger Hauer. And Joan Chen, I still have. There's a few of them I still have from that time frame of like video stores when I would like mom and pop type video stores that I would get them from. But like that Eliminators, which is the one next, it's hard to point and like, but the one on the far side where it's like the man, yeah, that one, the man droid is like coming. That I love. First off, love that movie. That's an Empire Pictures movie. But that poster is one I got off eBay. It's an original movie poster, but I ended up getting it off eBay, and I got it because as a kid, we had this video store called Armchair Theater, which is where whenever we'd visit with my dad every other weekend, because I'm one of those like classically 80s divorced parents kids, we would go there. And I remember to this day, like one of my strongest memories is looking up and seeing that poster on the wall and thinking, oh dear Lord, I must see this. It's a half man, half tank, and like a ninja, and like this cool, sexy, strong scientist lady, and like the rogue Han Solo guy. It's awesome. I love that movie so much. Anyway,
Amazing.
my point is all of those, again, I think also currently in the background is that it's the original House from 86, which is your year, I know. And
Yes.
you've seen House, right? Yeah, I'm sure you've seen House, right? Mack, you haven't seen House?
I can't remember. I was going to watch it because you guys talked about it one
Yeah,
time, but
you've got to see
I
House,
haven't yet.
dude.
I haven't yet.
But then the one next to it is Zone Troopers, which is another Empire, which ended up becoming Full Moon. And it has Tim Thomerson, who which I don't know if you've ever seen Trancers, but I'm a huge Tim Thomerson fan. So anyway, that's that one. So anyway, but my point is, I feel like I have had this opportunity that the agreement with my wife, and my wife is wonderful, and she's always loving and supportive, and she is the reason why I have this video shop, because it was like a birthday / Christmas present from a couple years ago. And but the agreement was I could have all my stuff again, but we're going to keep it relegated to a specific space so that, and I don't want it to be like chaos. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
didn't want this space to be like where I come out into it. It's just stacks of stuff everywhere. I want it to have some organization to it and have a
Yeah,
vibe
that's
like an
cool.
actual video shop. So that is why, but I've been using this opportunity, and I don't know what else you want to get into, but like I've been getting back into getting laser discs because I never had a ton
Oh,
of
that makes me
laser
so
discs.
happy.
Yeah, but stuff like that as well. Yeah.
Well, I'm so interested about that because I think laserdiscs are cool because they're also cool like records. Because when you have a CD on your shelf, I mean, it looks fine, but it's like this big. But
Yes.
the having a record, like right now on the other side of this wall, I have my favorite record hanging on
Mhm.
the wall in a frame. And
Yep.
it looks awesome.
It does look awesome. I agree with you.
But like, is that a Laserdisc behind you? The look of something?
Yeah. So you're talking about. I'm trying to point. You're talking about up here in the middle of our
Yeah, it's
background.
like the white with like the
Yes.
look of something.
Well, so there's three that are hanging, and they're actually still hanging up right behind me. The top one is Escape from New York. And again, the other beautiful thing about Laserdisc, much like records, to your point, I don't mind taking a poster to it. If I'm going to get an autograph from somebody, which I'm much more picky about who's on, because I don't want to just go spend a gajillion dollars on autographs. But Tom Atkins, who is the Stash, from Halloween 3, and he's in Escape from New York and Night of the Creeps and all those great movies. For those that don't know, you if you see him, you'll know him. And I'm a huge Tom Atkins fan. He was going to be it was at Phantasm a few years back, and so is Nick Castle, as in The Shape from the original Halloween, and he ended up directing Last Starfighter, and he co-wrote Escape from New York. So they're both there. I got this Laserdisc from Escape from New York. I got them both to sign it, so that's hanging up. Underneath it is the Stepfather Laserdisc, which is I love. Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. And then underneath that is Evil Dead 2. And what is super cool about that particular Laserdisc is I got it because I think at the time I was on the fence about what I wanted to get. Bruce Campbell was going to be at Spooky Empire. This is like right before, I think it was the year before COVID hit. So it was like 2019. I think it was the last Spooky Empire before the vid hit, the dark times. And Bruce Campbell was going to be there. And so was Sam Raimi and some other people. And I thought, oh, I need something. I got to get something special for them to sign, right? Well, I ended up finding this on eBay, and I ended up looking at it. I'm like, it was a reasonable price. I'm like, okay, that'd be a cool thing to get signed, right? But I started to notice it was something about the name of the person selling it and other things they were selling. I'm like, this is weird. I'm gonna send him a message. So I sent him a message, and I was like, I just gonna be a weird question to ask. Are you Scott Spiegel? And now, whoever doesn't know who Scott Spiegel is, Scott Spiegel was a co-writer on Evil Dead 2. He was like part of the Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell group of friends that kind of grew up making movies together. They help each other out. He also did the 1989 slasher classic Intruder, which is the one where it's set in the grocery store. I know Jay's a huge fan of it. He directed that movie and wrote it, I believe, as well. He's one of those, like, in my opinion, underrated guys who just kind of doesn't get mentioned that much when you're talking about Raimi and everybody else. And he goes, yes, it is. And I went, and now here's the reason. Now, first off, it's eBay. So you're like, okay, sure it is, right? Like what? But then it occurred to me, why is that the guy you would fake pretending to be? Like I get pretending to be Sam Raimi or like Bruce. Yeah, but why would you go? The guy I'm going to pretend to be Scott Spiegel. And I know it's like not to knock Mr. Spiegel, but it'd be like somebody pretending to be, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, why? That's a weird thing. And it's possible. It's definitely possible. But he was selling like a lot of like some behind the scenes stuff. And it was stuff that he was selling where I was like, okay, either this guy's like an avid collector or he had access to things that only somebody who is part of those productions would have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was like that. And some of it was pretty expensive. Was the only reason I didn't buy it. But so anyway, I said, oh my God. He's like, do you want me to sign it for you? If you buy it? I was like, why not? I mean, again, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this might not be him. But then again, why would you fake that? Why would you? That's so weird. So anyway, long story short, I get the mail. He's autographed it. So on top of my display case, I have like a little like a 5x7 card that's kind of like it's an Evil Dead 2, the same image as like on the just with the skull with the eye looking at you. And he signed that, Stay Groovy. And I looked up his actual autograph online where other people had actually gotten it, like a con, and it's him. Like it's his autograph. And the return address was like Los Angeles. Like it was very much like in line with where Scott Spiegel would live, and it was just. I'm 99.9% sure I have a Laserdisc that I bought directly from Scott Spiegel. So that's what I'm saying. Like all of it fits to where I'm like, oh my God, I have Evil Dead 2, the co-writer of Evil Dead 2. I have his Laserdisc. I'm sure he had multiple ones, right?
Right.
But it's not the point. I'm like, that is freaking awesome. So
that is amazing.
Yeah. So that is proudly on my wall.